Hey guys, it's Lori here at the Land of Color, and I have a really fun and interesting topic to share with you today. We are going to be talking about Chelsea Gray and Kendall Charcoal. They're both from Benjamin Moore. And what started this whole thing is I got an email from one of my readers, and she is looking for a color for her kitchen island, and she wants to use the same color in a nearby dining room for some built-in shelving. So she has samples up, and she really likes Chelsea Gray and Kendall Charcoal, and she can't decide between the two. She knows they're very similar, but she's seen a little bit of a difference. So that's when she started Googling for more information. She was looking for more details about these two colors, and that's how she found her way here. She found her way to campchroma.com and the Colorography Lab. And let me just show you really quickly where we are. So we're here on campchroma.com, and it's right here, the Colorography Lab. So that's where she ended up when she Googled for more information, and she found the colorographies. And I'm just going to scroll these up into the window so we can see them. And they need to be even, or that would drive me crazy. I think that's good. So really what her email was about was she couldn't believe that the colorographies were so easy, and she couldn't believe how clearly they illustrated the differences between these two colors and how well it aligned with exactly what she was seeing. But she didn't know how to say it. She didn't know how to articulate the differences between the two colors when she was comparing them. So when she found the colorographies, she was like, this major aha moment, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yes, that's exactly what it is. And she didn't have the right language to talk about it. And so she emailed me, and she just wanted to validate that, yeah, it really is that easy, and that she was reading these color notations correctly. She was reading the numbers and the charts and the scales in the colorographies correctly. And she is, and it really is that simple. So I'm going to walk through it with you guys so we can talk about the differences and similarities between these two colors, because like I said, it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that Chelsea Gray and Kendall Charcoal were so similar. So the first thing I want to talk about is where these color notations come from. Hue, value, chroma, and LRV. These come from measuring the color with a device like a spectrophotometer or a colorimeter. And in order to do that, we have to determine a light source. We have to follow some kind of a standard. And the standard that's used in the architectural coatings industry and the paint industry is called Illuminant D65. That's the kind of light that's used to measure the colors, to get the color data values, and eventually these color notations. So a lot of people get really wrapped around the axle with the whole illuminant thing. The point of an illuminant is not to mimic interior light sources. It's not supposed to look like what the light looks like in your house. That's not the point of an illuminant. We need to specify a kind of light source in order to measure the colors, because we have to get everyone on the same page. If you don't establish the light source, if you're not following some kind of a standard, then the color definition, the color description doesn't mean anything. That's the biggest issue with undertones, right? People who categorize color by undertones never specify the quality of light that was used when they made that determination. They don't like to talk about the light. And there's a reason why people who categorize color by undertones want you to ignore the factor of light. But you can't, because without light, there is no color. So again, we have to choose, we have to follow some kind of standard when we're measuring colors and getting color notations. And for colorographies, I use an Illuminant D65 2-degree observer. I go into more details about illuminants and observers and all that stuff in my course called The 4 Pillars of Color. So if you're interested in all those details, that's where you can learn more. So one of the questions that inevitably comes up about these color notations is, well, as soon as you change the light source, then this notation is no longer valid, right? Then this notation would be different because the light's different. And this is true. That's absolutely true. But in my experience, what I found is this color notation, when it comes to residential applications, this color notation holds true a little bit better than 50% of the time. And here's the coolest thing. Here's the best thing. Even if it doesn't hold true, this color notation is still incredibly powerful and useful, because if the color notation doesn't hold true in the space, then this now becomes a jumping off point. This now becomes an intelligent point of departure for developing an alternative color strategy. So it's a win-win situation. You cannot lose when you have a color notation, whether it aligns when you sample it in the space or whether it looks different. Either way, you still have this incredibly powerful framework to work from to figure out what to do next. So that's the point of an illuminant, and that's why it works even if the light is different in the space. So with that said, that's where hue value, chroma, and light reflectance value comes from. They come from color measurements. That's not where the warm and cool designations on the color strategist color wheel comes from, right? These did not come from color measurements. These do not come from color data values. I developed these categories of warm and cool, these warm and cool designations for the hue families in a different way. And if you want more details about that, go to thelandofcolor.com. This is my other website. This is where I have a blog. Scroll down to color blog, and it was November 18, I think. I know it was November. I know that. It was November 16th of 2018 when I wrote this blog post called Disrupting What You Think You Know About Warm and Cool Colors. So if you click on that blog post, I walk through everything, the entire process I followed, all of the resources that I used to establish the warm and cool designations on the color strategist color wheel. It's probably more information than you really need or want to know, but it's all here. And I also share a video on here. Let me get down to it. This is one of my very favorite videos. So if you don't visit the blog post for any other reason, visit it to watch this video. So that's the story of warm and cool on the color strategist color wheel, and I needed to explain all of that because that was one of her first questions, and this is what makes this topic so interesting, this comparison between these two colors so interesting, because Chelsea Gray has a hue family notation of 5.09Y. That's basically the middle of the yellow hue family. So her question is, well, is it warm or is it cool? Because it's right there in the middle. And honestly, it can go either way. How we establish color temperature is by comparing colors. So the only way to figure out which way Chelsea Gray is going to flip or swing is by comparing it to another color. And in her situation, she's comparing it to Kendall Charcoal, which makes this pretty easy because Kendall Charcoal has a hue family notation of 6.26Y. That falls on the cool side of the yellow hue family. So when you compare Chelsea Gray to Kendall Charcoal, it's pretty obvious that Chelsea Gray is the warmer color because it is literally closer to the warmer side of the yellow hue family. So that was the first thing that she noticed as far as the colorography is kind of aligning with her visual assessment of the samples in her space. She felt like Chelsea Gray was the warmer color too, and the colorographies validated her point of view on that. So the next thing she was wanting to talk about was value, lightness and darkness. She felt like Chelsea Gray was the lighter color. You know, is Chelsea Gray lighter than Kendall Charcoal? And we have two scales on the colorography that we can look at to get that information. So value, there's a little note down here that tells you how light or dark a color is. And light reflectance value, there's a little note here on the colorography, and it tells you that light reflectance value is about how much light a color reflects and how much it absorbs. Value and light reflectance value both have to do with luminance. They're about luminance. I go into more details about that in the color, in the 4 pillars of color course. And again, this is another one of those things that we're not going to dive too deep into the details. But LRV tells you how much light a color reflects or absorbs, and value tells you what that looks like, right? So on a scale from 0 to 10, how light or dark does the color look? Light reflectance value tells you literally how much light it keeps and how much it bounces back into the space. But they both have to do with luminance. So if we look at the scales, we can see that Kendall Charcoal has a value of 4.40 right here. If we come over here to Chelsea Gray, it has a value of 5.38. We can basically round this up to 5.40. So there's a difference of 1 between Chelsea Gray and Kendall Charcoal. If we look at the scale, we can see that the indicator box here is a little bit higher up on the scale, closer to white, compared to the indicator scale here for Kendall Charcoal, which is a little bit lower and closer to black. So we look at the numbers and we can see that Kendall Charcoal has a lower number. We look at the scale and we can see how that relates to a scale between white and black on a gray scale, and we can see that it's darker, it's lower. Same with light reflectance value. Kendall Charcoal has a lower light reflectance value. We can see on the scale that the little black dot is closer to the black sun compared to the little black dot here for Chelsea Gray, which is farther up the scale and closer to white. So the two scales illustrate that Chelsea Gray is in fact lighter than Kendall Charcoal, and so do the numbers. So if you want to look at the pictures, you can figure it out. If you want to compare numbers, you can figure it out. So the last thing we're going to talk about is chromaticity. So she said that she felt like Kendall Charcoal was more neutral overall. She felt like it was just a more neutral gray compared to Chelsea Gray. And she noted that the little note here for the chroma scale says how colorful or neutral. And she asked, well, since this is a shorter box, does that mean that Kendall Charcoal is more neutral compared to Chelsea Gray that has a bigger box? Or does it go the other way around? Because this is a bigger box, but she's like, but this is closer to neutral. So it's like, yep, you got it right the first time. The shorter box means it indicates that Kendall Charcoal is closer to a neutral gray compared to Chelsea Gray, which has a little more chromaticity, and it's not quite as neutral. It's farther away from a true neutral gray than Kendall Charcoal. And again, we can also compare the numbers. Chelsea Gray has a chroma of 0.56. Kendall Charcoal has a chroma value of 0.23. So Chelsea Gray has more at 0.56, which means it's more colorful. And that's it. Those are all of the color attributes that the colorography illustrates for you, and it is as easy as it looks. And we're working on adding more colors to the colorography lab every day. Our goal is to get the most popular colors into the colorography lab first, and then we'll take a look at some other colors. So if you don't find the color that you're looking for in the colorography lab, you can send me an email and I'll get it on the list. You can email me at lori@thelandofcolor.com, and I'll add it to the list and maybe get it in the lab a little bit sooner than we would have planned on putting it in there. But if you're looking for it, I'm happy to do it for you. So if you guys have any questions about the colorographies or the color data values or color measurements, any of that stuff, you can just leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer them. And if you're interested in taking my course, The 4 Pillars of Color, you can come here to campchroma.com, and if you click on courses, you'll go to a page that lists all of the active courses or all of the available courses that we have right now. And The 4 Pillars of Color is what you want. This is the one you're looking for. Okay, well, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me and talking about some fun stuff, some fun color stuff. At least I think it's fun. And you guys kind of crack me up because it's like nobody's going to be interested in watching me walk through all this stuff, but you guys are. You guys watch my videos and I get all kinds of comments and emails, and we're just a bunch of color freaks. I mean, admit it, right? That's what we are. We're just a bunch of color freaks, a bunch of color nerds. So I love spending time with you guys. I hope you guys love spending time with me. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later.